This is the June membership workshop. This has almost been a series for us. So Christy last month talking about how to build a practice really intentionally around the thing that's important to you. For Christy, it happened to be family. For some of you, it's something different. The point was not necessarily building around family. The point was building around what was important to you really intentionally. Today, we're going to talk about enough and how to figure out what is enough, how to think through that, and then tactically, maybe even how to do it. And then we constantly get asked about once you've identified, we've been actually hosting retreats here at my house for 12 people. We did one in April and one in May. And it's been interesting at the retreats, people were supposed to come with a puzzle that they were trying to solve, and everybody did a problem or a puzzle. And often they showed up as tactical. But then when we got behind it, what it was often was a function of figuring out who you really wanted to be and what you really wanted your practice to look like. And then the big hurdle was always time, right? Like, how do I have enough time to focus on this thing? How do I have enough time to maybe clear up some of the urgent, emergency stuff so I can focus on the really important stuff? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in July, is really sort of once you create a stop doing list, once you understand how that there are things you need to delegate or delete or maybe even automate, we're going to talk specifically deep dive tactics on what we do. So that will be July. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was just these retreats. Just know that the April and May were incredibly rewarding. They're for 12 people. We spend all day, and it's basically a day and a half, kind of working on the puzzle that you bring and allowing the mountains to provide you answers, the mountains and your peers. It's been really, really fun. So we've got one in August. The May sold out super fast. August sold out super fast. I don't know where we are on the September one, just recently released, and then we'll have a couple more. So just keep your eyes out if you're interested in that. Know that it's a thing. Let's talk a little bit about this concept of enough. I'm convinced that today's conversation will provide insight. And I think it's kind of the most important insight. All the other tactical challenges that we need to cover, which are incredibly important, the tactics are important, are so much easier when the vision is clear and when you're clear about why you're building something. And that's really what we want to dive into today is enough. I mean, we get a lot of questions about constantly looking for, growing the business, more clients, more revenue. In the pre-detox days, we'd even say more AUM. And then we also get a lot of questions about how do I feel like I've grown accidentally. I stuck around long enough. Now I feel a little bit like I'm being pecked to death by ducks. You know what I mean? Like I've got too much going on. How do I get more clear about how to solve for that problem? Well, you're not alone if those are questions that you've had. Either A, how do I build? Or B, how do I get more intentional now that I've built? Because it comes up often. Business design is lifestyle design. I don't care what you call it. You can call it a cute lifestyle business if you want, but how you design your business is going to is going to have, I don't know what else would have a larger impact on your life, just purely because of the function of the time you spend working in your business. So Jeremy, this kind of started when I texted Jeremy on a Friday, and on Monday he replied and said, sorry, I didn't reply. I'm secretly trying to take Fridays off. I was like, well, your secret is not safe with me. Because I said secretly, what's that all about? And he's like, well, I don't want anyone to think I'm a slacker. And I was like, okay, bro, here we go. Now everybody's going to know because we have to sort of be okay with giving ourselves and others permission to go skiing on a Tuesday, if that's what's important to us, or take our kids surfing on their spring break. So let's talk, Jeremy, about enough. How did you get to the spot where you felt like this enough thing's important to me?
It really took root in my head at my previous firm, I had the traditional story on partnership track there. We were talking about, what future looks like. And I remember talking with my boss, who someone who I have a lot of respect for, and we're talking about the future and growth and so forth. And I asked him, like, at what point do we stop taking on new clients? And he kind of paused and says, like, well, this isn't really an industry where you can afford to do that. And I don't remember what my response was like on the spot. I probably just like nodded my head and agreed, but that really stuck with me. And I was like, well, actually, like, of all the industries, of all the jobs, like, if you take really good care of your clients, like, you can choose not to grow. And I think that's a really interesting idea. And that's what really, I think, germinated this idea of like, what does enough look like? Yep.
So let's dive into a little bit about like what's enough. You've got a really cool way of defining enough. Walk us through these three definitions you have of enough.
Initially, I thought enough was just a number. It was like, okay, once Fine
Mm,
Financial is doing this number and I can take out this amount, that's enough. Like, that I'm good. It was a spreadsheet number for me. But as I, really started thinking through more of this, I mean, the first thing I realized was like the very concept of enough is incredibly emotionally charged, like depending on
huh.
where you sit in the socioeconomic ladder. For a lot of people around us, the idea of enough is framed around questions like, do I have enough money to pay rent? The vast majority of us, like, who are probably on this call, like, we're past that line, most likely, from as far as
Yeah.
like, what's enough to keep a roof above our heads, clothing, on our back, food in our bellies. The second one would be that spreadsheet number of like, all right, what's the established enough? And that's where I'd like traditionally understand, okay, if my firm does this, I can take out that. That allows our family to do a lot of the things, not everything, but like a lot of the things that we really want to do. And that second one, like it's honestly that's the easiest one to define from. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of work to, figure out what that number looks like for us. But then the third one, this third nuance of enough is what I call like the emotional enough. And that thing's crazy volatile. And it's even someone who's lived in this concept of enoughness for a while now. It's still funny how like that emotional degree of enough, like, changes so frequently of like we're taking a vacation somewhere and we're like, oh man, like what would it be like to, to live here? Or, buddy buys a new house and I'm like, oh man, like what would it look like, to live in that type of home? Like that emotional enough is what like takes this ongoing almost management or discipline to live within and have a healthy perspective from it.
Let me just mention real quickly something that James mentioned in the chat. This is really important. I think this conversation around enough requires us to hold two competing truths in our mind at the same time. And that's like what you have to do as an adult. One truth is I can have enough. I can be enough. The second truth could be, and I want to grow. Like, what are the challenges? Like, talk to me about, like, of course, of course, of course, I'm going to build a business designed intentionally around whatever I define as important to me. What comes up immediately? I mean, we've talked about some of them, but run through the challenges that you've seen.
The biggest one is looking around at what other advisors and other firms are doing. But even like someone who thinks they're pretty well aware of like the comparison game, I still find myself like subconsciously be like, oh man, like that firm and my firm like launched at the same time and they just hired their 10th employee or like whatever. And I'll start benchmarking myself to things that I shouldn't be benchmarking myself to, based on my stated purposes and goals. So that one is just like looking around at what other people are doing in social media, I mean, that whether it's true or whether it's not, but there's a lot of people talking about what they're up to and and what they're doing. So that's a huge challenge that I wish I could say, was a magical switch that I just, turned one way and could walk out of the room. But it's a constant tension of like being aware of that I don't need to be, in that comparison game.
Part of me wants the society to be a place where if I asked you, what would it mean for you to be done or have enough or be at a place that you would know? Is that interesting? I'll just look at the chat for a second. Let me just scroll through. Brian, if I asked you, you're building a ladder leaning against a wall. What's the wall?
I go back to enoughness is internal. Whenever you start looking externally, whenever, I think Jeremy brought it up too, of looking at the studies. I feel like when you've gone through that process, when you've gone through that journey, when you've done a lot of the internal work, and again, it's a journey, I think, not a destination, right? I think you start to talk to other people and you can see whether they have done that or not. And I think for some people who have not, it's the 100 clients, $1 million each, so I can say I have, $1 million practice.
It's interesting when these like performance measurement tools become sticks to beat yourself up with or destinations to obsess about, and using this as occasional benchmark, not benchmarking, occasional, like I'm sticking my head out of the hole to see where I am. Am I on the path I thought I wanted to be on? But that's the level to which you use them. It can't be much more than that, I don't think. It's just sort of a check-in intentionally, like, how does this feel?
But one of the chief reasons of why I like implemented enough was so that I could spend less time working like in or on the business and like more time with my wife and kids in this life stage. And so a barometer that I kind of use is if I'm working more than 20 or 25 hours a week, which like this is a safe group. I don't tell many people that because it seems like, again, to like what you open up and like I don't want to be perceived as like a slacker. But like the reality is like I can generally get most everything I need to get done for the business in like 20 to 25 hours a week. If I'm working more than that, or if I'm working on Fridays, like that's like a warning light that like something might not be right or something needs adjusted from it.
Let's talk a little bit about doing this with clients. How have you helped clients, Jeremy, define the wall they're building against? Like, what does it mean? Why are we even doing this? What is enough? How have you helped clients do that?
I think really good financial planning and wealth management is like done in conjunction when like talking about client values, client purpose, like what are they trying to accomplish like in their life. There's always a different presenting problem of like when they come to like talk with us, but like if you do enough work, like you can kind of get to figure out, what is really important. And that's where I think our work as advisors can really shine of helping them live in alignment with like what they say is most important to them.
You've probably all had this experience, but I can promise you that clients, even though they come with a presenting problem that's very tactical, measurable, quantifiable often, investment performance, life insurance, how do I fund my kids' education? Sometime after they detox from they go through the financial pornography detox program with you, the way they'll describe their relationship with you to their friends, the value of their relationship will be words like, I'm not worried anymore. I'm not anxious. I feel better. And so it's very interesting to me that the most valuable thing you can provide is a feeling, right? And of course, the only way to get to that feeling is to do the technical work. I'm not downplaying the technical work. I'm just saying it's the feeling that the clients will point to as the value. I don't think about it anymore. That's weird. I'm not thinking about it anymore. So, Jeremy, thanks, my friend. So valuable. Please understand. And Jeremy, thank you for being an example. This is one of the reasons why I was like, oh, really? You're secretly taking Fridays off? We're going to tell everybody. so that we can all be sort of confronted with like, isn't that interesting? I'm hiding that. Right? Isn't it interesting? I don't want people to think I'm a slacker. Isn't it interesting? Like all of that is part of the exploration of having enough. So thanks for being willing to be open about it. If somebody was standing outside of your office after you went through the workshop today, and asked you what was the one insight you gained, and you had to tell them one thing, what would you say? And maybe there was only one.
I think for me, it's just being intentional about, and enough is not necessarily a number, and it's not for me. It's there's a certain goal, but it's really a lifestyle and designing my business around that. I run a full-time CPA firm and adding financial planning on top of it. So when it comes to balance and enough, I get it. And I've been really intentional. I started my firm from scratch 7 years ago. And so now just trying to figure out how to add financial planning also in that way. But we're focusing on going deeper with our clients rather than wider. We've paused to kind of stop taking on clients and really I'm trying to really get clarity about where I want to go with this. And I think for me, it's not a build, I don't want to grow to this crazy thing, but I really want to have an impact. And I like, Carl, you mentioned freedom of time, location. We have a remote team. It's just being able to do what I want to do and, make decisions. And like I have daughters in college. And if she called me and wanted me to go on vacation, I would be like, I want to be able to have that space. Every meeting is something a little bit different. That's kind of touches on, there's so many facets. I mean, there's a business, there are personal, like there's all these other things, but I think it's the like-minded people that you bring together, the quality and the diversity of your speakers, I think really makes it a really unique place. So I think, I don't think it's going too deep in the weeds, but I think giving those tools sometimes just as an overview, I think is super helpful. People could use them or not, but whatever you're doing, it's great. I'm really new. I mean, it's only been a few months, but I'm getting a lot out of it every week. And I thank you for including me on this call.
Thanks, Sandy. Fritz, what did you take away from today's call?
A reaffirmation reaffirmation of my realization within the last couple of years that I do have enough. And it wasn't by design, it was sort of accidental. Well, how did that happen? And it just working over the years to build a very nice practice with nice people with money. We decide we is our ideal client. And we've turned away. If you're not nice, you don't get to be a client. Sorry. And if you don't have money, I can't help you. So
amazing. Thank you. Let me ask a slightly different question, Charlie. What are you going to do differently after today?
My thoughts today kept coming back to, it's hard to have a conversation around all these very sort of existential pieces that we're talking about without getting down to a core of kind of who you are. And so for me, that revolves around my faith. And I know that is a polarizing conversation, but to me, when I was searching for all these things to satisfy me, it never did, whether it be the money or even the time or family or whatever it is. Yeah, I think we're all searching for something that's going to satisfy us. We see that in our clients all the time. They get the next thing and then, okay, we got to go to the next thing. And to me, having something that is true to latch onto. So for me, it was coming back to a core of when I start to get beyond that and start reaching out for all these things to try to make me feel like, all right, that's finally going to give me contentment, when really my contentment is rooted in the faith that I have.
Yeah, I love that. Tara, how would you, and I know I checked with you. I want to make sure I'm getting it right? Like tear a piece of paper, not Tara. Yeah.
That's correct.
What action will you take as a result of today?
The things of value are hard to define. And I totally agree with that. That was probably one of the big takeaways for me. And just that enough for me, it's not, you said it can't be a number. It's not a destination. For me, it's a feeling. So it's like trying to define that feeling and maybe come up with an image or something that can be a reminder to come back to, like with the ritualization.
Thanks, Tara. Dave, is there anything from today that where you had an aha moment?
In business, outside of business, I think the one that was hit upon today was like, if you're not growing, you're dying. Like, what does that mean? Like, you pressed into Jeremy and like asked, like really unpack that. But also like the default setting in, for financial planning is more, save more, get more clients. And really thinking about like, whose incentive is that? I think someone in the chat made a comment about if you go to conferences, if you go to advisory work in general, it's like, yes, of course, they're trying to promote more AUM or more clients or more, because that helps their business too. So you hit off, you opened up the time with the business design is lifestyle design. And I think I could have just walked away after I heard that and just went on a long walk and really unpacked that. So, those are the stuff that I'm kind of wrestling with. And I just am appreciative of looking back, like that first layer of like the basic enough and then lifestyle enough, just being able to be in the room with like-minded people that we all have different enoughs. And I think that we're all trying to get to the same island, but the journey might look a little bit different.
What you just watched was just a few of the highlights from the Society of Advice workshop for the month of June. I don't know if you feel this way, but if you're anything like me and so many of the advisors I talk to, there's so many demands on your attention and your time and your energy. It can sometimes feel like you're like one of those clowns in the circus running, trying to keep plates spinning on the sticks, and you're running from plate to plate to plate. And what we wanted to talk about today was like, what would it mean to take a plate off the stick, right? What would it mean to be able to have harmony and calm in the midst of all these responsibilities? And how can you teach your clients to do the same? That's what this workshop was about. And that's what you'll get when you join the Society of Advice. So to see the full thing, that's what it takes. Just join the Society of Advice. And listen, I can't even begin to tell you what the Society of Advice is about, but if you like this idea, if you find this intriguing, if you're looking for questions that have been patiently waiting for you, join now, watch this 90 minutes. And guess what? Because I want it to be like, I don't even want you to spend any mental energy on this. I want it to be risk-free in your head. Join. Your first 30 days is free. I mean it. It's not a sales tactic. I am only doing this because I want you to see these 90 minutes. And then I want you to attend our next live workshop in the first 30 days. If it's for you, please stay. If it's not for you, like high fives and hugs, I hope this workshop helps you. Like, cancel. It's no problem. Come and see. Because what I'm submitting to you is each month, we're going to ask questions that have been waiting for you, and questions that have no right to go away. Because my contention is, if you want to be a better financial planner, be a better human. And those are the types of questions that are waiting for you. So join, check it out. Just go to thesocietyofadvice.com, thesocietyofadvice.com to join and get your first 30 days to check it out and see if it's a good fit. Cheers, my friends.